Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the remake of a video long in the making. About a few years ago, probably 4 years ago now, I think it was actually currently three, close to four, right? Yeah, okay, whatever, three. I did this original tier list for the Total Drama Bedrock players of seasons 1 through 4, and back then, right? I don't think I had a particularly great understanding of the strategic game, and a lot of that has to do with really the only show I was watching is Survivor, and even that season or the new era specifically is not one that really engages much strategically from the players on this season. It's really straightforward votes. Um, you don't really need out the box thinking to succeed. It's really simple. Majority votes pretty much every single time. And it really kept me in a place of being a casual viewer. And ever since about a year now, I've been really getting into Survivor on a more hardcore level, you could say. I've been binging a lot of the seasons, I've been branching out to other shows finally, and I think I really have a better idea of what is good and bad gameplay. Now, some of that is pretty transparent right from the get-go. Um, and we will see that shortly. But what I've done here is I've compiled a ranking of all 34 players of Total Drama Bedrock from seasons 1 to season 6. And yeah, it'll be a ranking worst, and then I'll just place whoever's the worst in the spot, D tier, whatever. And then I'll just go through the tiers and talk about each one individually and why they were good, bad, somewhere in the middle. And yeah, let's get this on. So the very worst player in 34th place of all Total Drama Bedrock players. Now, I guess I should preface these first few players are one-time players, and that is important because a lot of the players who did bad on a first or later appearance are also balanced out by a very strong appearance at some point in their little careers, we'll call it. These probably first four people haven't had that opportunity to really build a legacy for themselves. So all that's really known about them is their one bad season. So with that being said, the very worst player of Total Drama Bedrock, I have Matthew Nader, the first boot of season 5. And this is not even counting the failed season 6, where he was also first boot of that season. Um, Here I've compiled the spreadsheet. I've alternated or added comments on each individual placement, what caused them to be eliminated, what the votes were, if it was a lost PvP fight, stuff like that. And Matthew was a simple majority votes, 5-1. In the challenge, the one challenge, well, outside of the team challenge, team captain challenge, which he didn't do good in, as you'd expect from Matthew Nader. He volunteered to do the trivia portion of the first team challenge, in which he critically blundered that. Now, I believe the other team also didn't do particularly great in that, but the point is, he kind of cost his team when Garchomp went in the ring and CJ, which already a pretty iffy combination, if we're being honest. But Matthew didn't clutch up either, and it's always easier to pick out Matthew and just vote him out, and that's just kind of what happened here. Um, his gameplay, didn't really get to shine, didn't really get a chance to pull off anything or showcase any kind of talent in this season. We're not really pulling off of other game shows for these players either, so despite Matthew's track record of being an early boot, his deep run on Panic, for example, does not factor into his potential to plan on future seasons. When I talk on some other players about their potential for deep runs on other appearances, I'm not factoring in other game shows. I'm purely factoring in the played games that happen here, which can really fuck over some of these people in the ranking, I will say. I'd say two people in particular are a lot better players now than the data will show. But yeah, Matthew, I don't really have faith in him on really any season, if I'm being honest. If I will say, if he gets to the merge, there is a really extreme chance he does make finale. He will be finale bound. That being said, I would be baffled if he could win a finale challenge. So with that, let's move on to number 33. This player, really not much better than Matthew, arguably worse from the same season. I have Kevin. Now, Kevin. One thing that helps him be over Matthew is that he survived that Matthew vote with getting a vote at all from himself, and that's pretty. I'll give him that. Um, Problem is with Kevin, he didn't necessarily even do anything bad, and people still wanted him out that much because of how annoying he was. Garchomp completely and utterly messed up that challenge for their entire team, and almost everybody except for Xander was pointing at Kevin and was ready to pick him off. That's just that's just bad. And just looking at this era of Kevin, I don't see a world where that's really redeemed for himself. I think on any future um season he were to play like this, not counting modern Kevin, I don't know how modern Kevin is in shows. He could be better for all I know. Um this version of Kevin, no. There's no chance in hell. He was flipping out at people. He was not yeah, I think you get the point. Number 32. This is a player, very unique on the cast, and one who didn't really get a chance to play. This is none other than Ice. Yeah, Ice, he is the only player who was voted out, before even getting on a team. And he wasn't even voted out, I should say. He was not chosen for a team, is it? Which is pretty fucking bad, which is why he's down here. But also, I will give him a little bit of credit in that he did play the round of Witch Trials pretty well. He got pretty far in that challenge, and if he played just a little bit better, people around him had played a bit better, he could have been a team captain in that challenge, I think. That being said, not having any of these social dynamics going into the season or any real teamed worth physically is really bad. And it's just, you gotta punish him for that, I gotta say. Now, not too much to say about him. Also, not too much to say about this guy. At number 31, we got Lucas. Now, Lucas is a really, really frustrating and interesting tidbit here because Lucas was also someone who was playing very well in the Witch Trials Challenge, and he was picked, I think, maybe, I'm pretty sure, I didn't look into the drafting order for the teams. I wasn't really looking into that. I think he might have been Badger's first choice for a team, or second or third. Um, I think Lucas would have been really structurally sound on this team. I think he would have had a good longevity if he had stuck to the game on a social level. He was set up well with Badger and his alliance with Plaz and Garchomp and Scolie. However, the fact of the matter is, I believe Lucas was just getting accustomed to Minecraft on PC. This was his first game show on PC. I think he'd only had it for like a week at most. And it was getting to him emotionally. He just couldn't take it. He rage quit getting juked by Datcrit. It's an infamous moment. I love it. You love it. We all fucking love it. Let's be honest with ourselves. And yeah, He left. He rage quit, but I could see Lucas having a good run on the season. Um, Possibly being dragged to the end. I don't know. I wouldn't say that actually. I think he would have been taken out early merge if possible. Just because, well, yes, you could take him to the end as an easy finale beat. I don't know if it's worth it because of the kind of social player Lucas is. He is willing to flip on you. He is willing to shake the game up. So I think Lucas is warranted being this far in the tier list. Now we move on to number 30. And this is someone you could argue is so much worse than some of the people before him. This is our first two-time player coming in at number 30. We have Jazzy Boy. Oh my god, Jazzy Boy. I love Jazzy Boy to death, but man, man, what a season. On my original TDB player ranking, I was particularly negative on Badger for not drafting people onto his team that were very physical, your Yeets, your Datcrits, Nathan, etc. I am, as you will see when we get to Badger, I take back a lot of that criticism. I think a lot of it is really silly. Jazzy Boy, it is entirely warranted with his terrible drafting to negatively put him on the tier list because for Jazzy Boy, he is on a season where there are three teams of four, and being on a disaster tribe of four players is a whole lot worse than being on a disaster tribe on a season with two teams of six. Jazzy Boy's team, I mean, really just look at this. None of them made merge. Not a single one. I mean, you could argue, you could count Crunchy if you want. He made merge. Um, they lost the first challenge pretty handedly. The parkour, they were all doing pretty fucking badly. And they vote out Caden in a, is it majority? It is majority 3-1 vote. Pretty unanimous decision there. Makes complete sense. Then we move into Jazzy Boy's elimination, which is so fucking crazy. The biggest fucking headache I've ever probably had hosting a game show. The situation was that James was sorry, excuse me. There were three people. We had James, Plaz, and James. Nope, I said James twice. Jazzy, James, and Plaz. Okay. Plaz was locking in his vote instantly for Jazzy Boy. James was trying to politic for everyone to vote themselves, so that way it would be a tie. And then I don't know what he was thinking either. I guess to go to PvP. I don't know. Jazzy Boy voted Plaz initially. Okay, that's fine. The problem is that Jazzy Boy on the revotes, in the 1-to-1-to-1 revote, fucking crazy by the way, starts pitching James because James is voting himself. Now Plaz is already locking in his vote instantly on the revote for Jazzy Boy. So, obviously, James isn't going to vote himself because Jazzy Boy is voting James, so James just switches his vote from himself to Jazzy Boy, and Jazzy Boy sent packing. Oh my god, it was... I I don't have words. I'm so sorry. I don't have words. I will say, in Jazzy Boy's favor, on the return, which obviously he goes out really early, I do have the data for the swaps. Because on season 5 we did an actual traditional team swap. Most of the time it's just like pick one person from the other team to switch to even things out, or vote one person from your team to switch on both teams. And then this season it was traditional slash sad art, all that. Jazzy Boy's team was not beneficial at all. His only ally was Fun Vibes, and even Fun Vibes voted for him, so he was just kind of swap screwed there. To be fair, I don't know who would have gone to bat from him from his original team. Maybe CJ, maybe Datcrit, I don't know. It's really hard to say. I don't think Jazzy Boy had a deep run in him on that season, unfortunately. And Jazzy Boy's horrific gameplay on season 3 is it speaks for itself, really, I'd argue. Let's move on to another really bad player. This one is particularly an interesting case because they were set up really well initially on this season. However, everything just fell apart. This is another one-time player. This is Scolie. Now, Scolie, as I alluded to with Lucas, was set up really good socially on Badger's team. He was in the majority alliance of Badger, Scolie himself, and Luke Garchomp and Plaz. That was the majority alliance. You could argue Lucas was probably intended to be somewhere in that equation as well, but that doesn't really matter. Lucas being voted out probably helps Scolie, in fact, I'd argue. Now, problem is, Scolie was so bad in the challenges that, if I'm looking at this correctly, okay, so they did vote out CDI because, CDI is also pretty shit in challenges, to be honest here. I love you, CDI. You unadded me on Discord a few years ago, I think, but I miss you, gang. Scully, on a situation where someone was just switched to their team, Datcrit, they still opted to vote out Scully over Datcrit because Scully was so dog shit in the challenges and they needed Datcrit. So Datcrit was really, I don't know if it was lucky on his part. I guess it was, really. Xander didn't really play into that, I don't think. That was a decision made by the rest of the alliance. Garchomp, Plaz, and Badger, they just opted to flip on him on a position where, from a social perspective, going forward, maybe not the most advantageous for them in the long term. Keeping Datcrit around could be very risky if they wanted to keep winning challenges as planned. But, alas, Scully just wasn't worth it for them, so they dunked him. Um, I think now it would be really interesting to see Scully play again, because I know he's pretty good at Minecraft now. But alas, we do not live in that timeline, so therefore, Scully is unfortunately pretty far down the tracks. Next up, we got at number 28, we got the one and only Salamander from season 5. Now, Xander, I think, made it a decent ways. Okay, never mind. He really did not make it far at all in season 5. Um, Something to note is Xander. Okay, let's look at his. Okay, so it was a unanimous vote to vote out Matthew, of course. Now, on the Kevin vote is where things fall apart for Xander because in this vote it was the 3-2 vote. 3 votes sending Kevin packing, 2 votes sending Garchomp packing. Xander was that second vote who voted for Garchomp, so he was just not put in on the plan to vote out Kevin, I guess? Or he made the conscious decision to still vote for Garchomp, which either way does not bode well for his gameplay in this season. And now, let's switch. Let me look at the tribe swap to see, because this chart doesn't really take into account the swaps. I tried looking into how to do like a gradient so I could like see like the swap tribes. I thought that would look really cool. I don't know if there's a way to do it on Google Sheets, unfortunately. Okay, we're looking at Xander. This is season 5. Okay, so Xander, yes. Okay, so Xander, and an even bigger showing of how pretty weak and shit his game was, respectfully. I love you, Xander. You're a great dude. I'm not trying to talk shit and like ruin any of you guys' days. You're all my friends, you know that. Um, Fun Vibes was an odd man out from the other team going into the swap. It very easily could have just been a Fun Vibes boot. However, they're they still opted, which is Dawson and Garchomp still opted to vote with Fun to vote out Xander, which is really crazy. Um, so yeah, Xander, not a great showing from him. Our last player, rounding out the D tier, coming in at, if I could go back to the ranking page, at number 27. This is someone who had a lot of potential in the game, but was just screwed over on both seasons and really just played too hard out of the gate, I'd argue. This player is Avaughn. Avaughn, I think, is a much better player in general than this rating, this ranking, this tier would suggest. We can look back at season 1. where Avaughn and Tako were in control of that first vote to take out Datcrit. That was an Avaughn move. So what changed? Well, Tako decided to move forward with Dallas, who wasn't even in on the plan to vote out Datcrit, mind you. I think who did Dallas vote for? I think it might have been Avaughn, if I'm correct. Yeah, I think yeah, he had to have voted Avaughn because Datcrit then would have voted Dallas. So Tako opted to vote with him, who wasn't even in on the plan, to vote out Avaughn instead. Um, so yeah, he got played, and while yes, he did play well for one round, he just played his cards too hard, too fast. That even if he stuck with Taco, I think his target would just be too big painted on his back to have made it to the end game. And this brings us to season three. We're on the return. Avaughn was in a 2v2 tie. I believe the person who voted with him might have been Fira. I don't think I actually calculated this. I tried to calculate, not calculate, sorry, that sounds wrong. Not wrong, you know what I mean. It's incorrect terminology. Generally, I try to keep track of who voted for who on these votes where it's like this. I did not for this case. I'm assuming, I think Crunchy might have voted with Avaughn? I'm not sure. Crunchy or Fira. Taco sent Avaughn packing, I think with Fira on his side. Maybe. I believe. I'm pretty sure. So, and it was deadlock tie. Yeah, because Fira had to have voted Avaughn, because Avaughn voted Fira. Yeah. Okay. So, yes, and then Avaughn, in a PvP fight, he probably should have won, to be honest. Lost to Fira. So, I mean, your mileage probably carries on really Avaughn as a whole, how you feel about him, how you'd rate him on this tier list. My problem is, it just didn't work out for him twice. And while he had a very impressive run on the failed season six, that's obviously not counting. I was rooting for him on that season, honestly, but yeah, didn't work out for him in these two canon seasons in very big fashion. So that rounds out the D tier. I was thinking about doing more tiers because the B tier has a lot of people, but I don't know. The way I was thinking about it, I would really only be separating people from the D tier and the C tier. So it just didn't really make sense for me because the B tier was basically still all the same. Whatever, you don't care. Okay, let's move on to someone else who really could be in the D tier, to be honest. I might change that. We'll see how I'm feeling. I'm actually really pondering that right now. I might take that back. Yeah, I'm gonna do it. Okay. Coming in the actual last place on the D tier, 26th place, if I could find the damn person. Holy shell. Holy shell? What? It's James. Um, James on this season, man. Wow. Okay. Well, okay, I'm gonna stick with my guts. I'm gonna put him in C tier. So I think James and Plaz was a big duo that was intended to work out if they could have made it to the merge together if they weren't losing all these challenges. Therefore, James was a core part of the Brown team with Plaz. Problem is, well, I assume he and Plaz were probably the figureheads who just pointed at Caden and just kicked him out. Problem with James is in the Jazzy vote, I can't even fathom why you would even try to pick. Okay, I can see why you would maybe say vote yourself, guys, if your intent was not to vote yourself and to just vote off Jazzy or Plaz. That was not his intent. He was fully intending on voting himself, which he did do. It wasn't until Jazzy Boy started pitching James that James flipped. If Jazzy just didn't say that out loud, James would have gone home. It's it's baffling gameplay. It's really baffling gameplay, but I have to look at it like this. If James survived, which he did, if James and Plaz didn't lose challenges from there on and made the merge, I think they could have been critical pillars on how the game was played moving forward. I could see people like Wells and Monkey playing with them, for example. Um, yeah, I think there was a lot of potential to James's game that kind of keeps him out of the D tier for me, but there are abysmal lows to his game that it's really hard to overlook, and it's so tempting to just put him in the D tier, really just off of that Jazzy vote round alone. It's so baffling. Okay, let me time check real quick. I've been going for a while, haven't I? God damn. Okay. We're only at number 25. Speaking of, at number 25, we have our next two-time player, our third two-time player on the list. This is someone who has made it really deep in the game. This is a finalist here, really low on the list. Coming in at number 25, I do have Caden. Now, Caden, you are another instance of a player who, if we had a modern iteration of Caden's gameplay, he would probably be really good. He's become a really strong competitor, as seen on Xmas Game Show 2020. He was a strong competitor on PC. Problem is, I think he might have been on mobile, or he was on Xbox, one or the other. Either way, he was really shit. It's not fucking Xbox. Caden historically dog shit in challenges, okay? Now, he was literally treated as someone in the Spleef challenge as the president they had to protect because he was so useless. And Caden's really saved. In season one, he's so lucky. Niner quits in season one because he's sick. And the reason that CJ goes home after that is because I was dog shit and stylized the vote in a way that I haven't done since. Basically, Yeet was sent on to the other team after Avaughn was voted out to even the teams 3-3. That's when after or before Niner was voted out and quit. Then that means it was just CJ and Caden on this team. And how I decided this for some reason was the other team would vote out people on this team. It was so stupid. I fixed this in future seasons by just having them PvP. In a normal situation where it would have been PvP, Caden gets clowned on and he's sent packing and CJ makes the merge. This is not that situation. In this situation, Caden is voted out in a 2-1, or CJ is voted out in a 2-1 vote. Caden advances, and that's how that plays out. CJ, Yeet tried to save CJ, of course. Tako and Dallas were not having that, which is obviously great play on their end. And then Caden gets lucky yet again because Dallas's Wi-Fi or internet or something gets cut out. He loses it. He cannot finish the rest of the season. Then Yeet wins the final three challenge, takes Caden to the end with him, and dog handles him. It's completely and utter domination over Caden the entire season. He, ah, it's kind of pitiful. We return with Caden on season 3, where he does absolute dog shit in the first challenge and he's sent packing unanimously on the first vote. It is baffling, but the reason that kind of keeps him out of the D tier is because Caden does have that viability to be taken with as a good vote with him through the game and is pretty trustworthy to take with the end. Caden's not going to flip on you, and he will go to the finale with you. And on most seasons, if he's on the winning team, I think if Caden's on a season where it wasn't a 3 teams of 4 situation, Caden could have been safe if his team was winning challenges, possibly. There's also a fat chance he's just voted out at the first opportunity anyway, if it's before the merge. Man, I'm passionate about this shit, man. Coming in at number 24. This is one of the most wonky um situations in the entire show's history. This is a player who was unfairly voted out because I'm a dumbass and misread the votes. That is a real thing that happened on season 2. This is CDI Panda. Now, CDI Panda, the reason I put him down here, let me break down how I think season 2 would have gone if I didn't misread the votes. So, I think CDI would have basically been the Caden figure of season 2. This is someone that Niner was closely aligned with, and let's play out CDI's game because there are good positives in the early game. The one vote he had, he had a good game. I'll give him that. He had a good game set up for him too. Nathan was idled out by CDI because CDI had found the immunity idol on this season. This is the only season we had an immunity idol. CDI was able to find it, and he correctly deduced when to play it. Maybe Niner helped him with that, I'd imagine. But CDI still played it correctly and correctly idled out Nathan, with Niner still voting on his side. Now we go to the CDI vote, where Connor was supposed to be eliminated. And a 2-to-1 vote, but I was reading the votes weirdly that season. I would announce who was safe and instead of who was eliminated. Um, and I read Connor's name and the vote, and I was going to then say who was safe. So because I just had Connor's name stuck in my head, I said Connor instead of CDI. And yeah, it was not great for me. But if CDI were to have played the rest of the season out normally, maybe they would have just lost the challenge and CDI would have lost PvP. But let's say that doesn't happen. Let's say that they won the next challenge, which I believe was Leaf Spleef. Then Wells would have quit for Monkey. Then we're in a 2-to-2 deadlock situation. I think in this situation, a lot of it plays out similarly. Um, I think Monkey would get fourth. And then I think Niner would beat Yeet in the final 3 challenge, take CDI with him to the finale, and then dog walk CDI in the finale, and then Niner would have won. That's what I think would have happened in season 2. I could be wrong. Um, but yeah, there was a lot of potential. That didn't happen. I didn't give CDI that luxury. CDI did get to return on season 3, which he didn't. He literally gave me the time for that season and couldn't make it. The time and the date for the season, he couldn't make it. Season 4, he did also get to do, and he did attend. CDI just got unanimously voted out and a 4-to-1 vote. It was really kind of upsetting. All that buildup of 2 seasons for the return. How would he fare? Terribly. And that's unfortunately how I see CDI performing on most seasons. It's just really hard to justify keeping him around over other allies who are actually competent in the team challenges, which CDI obviously is not. Let's move on to number 23. This is one of the players I was alluding to that is heavily damaged by the fact of the time that TDB was originally hosted. This man is Connor. Connor had a great season 6, which we will talk about later, but he is superbly bogged down by 2 really, really shit seasons before he was really good at Minecraft. Season 2, he had a good read on the initial game, what needed to be done. He wanted to vote out CDI with Nathan. However, Nathan was idled out by CDI, and that put Connor on the outs initially. This then follows us up with the vote where Connor should have been eliminated. He was supposed to go home. I stepped in unintentionally and ruined that for CDI. We go to the merge in a situation where I assume it was Niner and Yeet who voted together to take out Connor. I could be incorrect. Maybe it was Yeet and Monkey. I'm not too sure. Um, Either way, Connor just didn't have longevity in the game with the booster that I unintentionally gave him in the season. And we cut to season 3, where he was just unanimously voted off by Wells and Monkey's pretty tight duo, as well as Datcrit, who just really had no incentive not to vote out Connor. Connor was still terrible in challenges at this time. And yeah, I will say, despite Connor really not having any business being on season 6 without context of the initial season 6 where he locked the fuck in. I really felt obligated to put Connor in on the redo because he was playing such a good game on the redo. He was I mean, he wasn't great at Minecraft that season because I was also like his first few weeks on PC. He didn't know some fundamentals, which cost him the game. But more importantly, on the actual season that counts, Connor did play a really not flip-floppy, sorry. I mean, to an extent, he did. Um, he was in a middle position for a lot of the game, wasn't really able to utilize that power to actually commit to a vote that resulted in anything huge. Looking in at Connor's original gameplay, we have the unanimous vote-offs of Inkling and Garchomp. I know Connor wanted to keep probably both these people. They would have been great for this game, but he did not have the social capital on a season like this where the cast was majority NC. So I will say, in that threshold, I will give Connor credit for really fitting in with those guys when he comes from a Feck background. Now, over time that this was hosted, he really did bond with Wells and Tako outside of the game more, so he's become a close friend of theirs, which really does benefit him in this season. Um, that being said, on the Crunchy vote, he did try to make something happen with Crunchy and vote out Datcrit. I assume they tried to contact Tako, but Tako didn't vote with them, of course, because Tako and Datcrit were a very tight duo. And then Connor just succeeded, whatever that word is, gave in, voted out Crunchy, and then played with Tako and Datcrit supposedly, which no, he didn't. I lied. So the merge in season 6 is pretty fucking nuts. Um, I have the data here. This was apparently a vote where really everybody was on the table. Everyone's name was being thrown out. Look at this vote. Three to, oh yeah, 3-3 vote. And I have the data here. The people who voted CJ were Wells, Monkey, and Connor. The people who voted Monkey were CJ, Datcrit, and Taco. Now, this is a problem for Connor because I assume Connor's pre-merge game was really just trying so hard to split up Taco and Datcrit, and he just couldn't pull it off. And this was really biting him in the butt. He really had like a Jake from 45 of Survivor kind of run, where he just couldn't get things to happen because people were just going against each other. It's like and Bruce fighting. In this situation, CJ and Wells just went for each other in a reason where it was just not beneficial to each other to do, which was Wells's doing. It was not CJ's doing, I will say. Yeah, they needed to stick together and separate that duo. Connor was not able to do that. Now you could also argue that maybe sticking with them would have been better. But neither of them were planning on taking Connor to the end, which they were very public about. So I think Connor made a lot of the right moves on this season, or at least attempted to, but everything else just went kind of wrong for him. And he still wasn't able to pull it off, so he's still got to lie this far down on the tier list, unfortunately, for my boy. Love him. Love the man. Let's move on to number 22. This is a pretty interesting little grouping of people. These are the kind of people who either got like swap screwed on like single run seasons or just didn't really have much runway on the game and long form mats. I don't know. They just didn't really have long runs going into a merge if they could have made it. First up, we have where's the man coming in at number 22? It's Perified. Perified, um, he was incredibly swap screwed. I could probably switch Connor with him if we're being 100% honest. It's okay. Perified was really swap screwed if we look at the elimination order. The green team was the only team losing. They got to after this, Datcrit had joined the green team, and then everybody on the teams voted for somebody after the Scolie vote to switch one person from their team onto the other. The red team had voted Perified off of their team onto the green team, at which Perified was just unanimously voted off. Now, okay, maybe swap screw is a bad way of putting it for this guy because clearly they had no problem just kicking him off the team anyway. That would have been the team's plan in the first place if they had lost a challenge, which they didn't. Um, and they probably weren't going to, which is another reason you could argue that he was swap screwed. That being said, I don't think he had any connections on this season that would have gotten him really anywhere at all. He probably just would have been a unanimous first merge boot if that opportunity had presented itself. Now, next up, we do have the one and only at number 21. For very similar reasons, we have Fun Vibes. Fun Vibes from Season 5, another one time player. He was on the actual swap season, in which I will commend some of his gameplay. He was able to uh, move into this majority pretty easily. He joined them in voting out Jazzy Boy, as we mentioned, in a 4-1 vote, and they actually were willing to vote out Xander before voting out Fun. Pretty impressive stuff. Problem is, they just kept losing, and eventually Garchomp and Dawson, being a tight duo that they were on this season, just voted out Fun Vibes. So, yeah, didn't really have much longevity, I believe. If he were to have made it one vote further, I don't know. Maybe he would have. Maybe he would have, honestly, because of the kind of people that were being targeted on this season. Datcrit, Dawson. These are big comp players that were being targeted. So maybe I could see Fun Vibes making top four, maybe top three. I don't think he was long for the end game, though. He would not have made the finale, I don't think, unless he actually won a challenge because Marlon and Logan were working together the whole time in that merge. Lastly, we do have Paul Roblox YT. I know, Monkey, you're crying right now. You're probably leaving an upset comment, and I'm upset too. Problem is, Monkey, or fuck, Paul, for very similar reasons to Perified. Just, he wasn't even swap screwed really. He just ran out of runway. Their team finally lost a challenge. Perified was a big shield that was swapped onto the other team. Kind of screwed over in that aspect, but he just didn't have really any connections on his team, or even the other team for that matter, for them to have really. Or was Paul sent to the other team? I think he might have been sent to the other team. Either way, he didn't really have the connections for a deep run on either team, no matter the outcome. And it's unfortunate to say, as a Paul Roblox YT fan myself, he was not long for the game. He would not have had a deep run. But that actually closes out our C tier, and we move into the big B tier, the big old B tier. How are we doing on time? Let's see, 43 minutes. Holy shit. Holy fucking shit. Okay. Coming in with number 19, Jesus Christ, we have someone I was dogging on in the original tier list way too hard, as I alluded to before. This individual is none other than Badger at 19. Now, Badger, I have a lot to commend his game for in retrospect. He set himself pretty strongly in the initial game in that draft. I was giving him a lot of shit for not drafting those people like Yeet and Nathan and Datcrit, who are strong people to have in the challenges. And while I still agree that he probably should have drafted just one, it's not a bad move for him because it really set himself up for a strong, tight trio that he had in the merge with Garchomp and Plaz, which could have worked out in his favor if he had won that PvP match at the final six. Problem is, he didn't. Now, he also had Scolie in his pocket, and I assume he would have had Lucas in his pocket too, so he really was set up really strong in the pre-merge. He had a really good pre-merge run. Problem is, as soon as he hit the merge, he lost that PvP fight to Bubby, I believe. And from there, he was just done. That being said, if he had survived one more vote, I think he could have done pretty well. I think No, I don't agree with that because I think Badger is just a known threat as a comp player. That he was always going to be someone that was targeted by likes of Yeet and Nathan and Bubby. They were not going to switch their target off of him, even still. So, with that, let's move on. Would be very interested to see how he plays again. Coming in, this is second, third time player. Sorry, I forgot about Connor. This is someone who has had some really low lows, some interesting middles, pretty strong middle, or fuck, strong run as his ending career. This is none other than Plaz Medic himself, the Brit. Now, Plaz, we should know from being first boot of season 2. Now, on this season, I will say, he was not set up well at all on this season. I think he really, for any guarantee of success, he would have had to have been on a team with CDI, Nathan, and Connor. I think would really, some primary combination of them would have had to have happened. Mainly Connor and Nathan, I think would have had to have worked with him. And CDI could have been like a buffer vote, is why I'm saying that. This was a really shitty team structure for Plaz. And, was he a team captain? No. Who drafted him? Wells drafted him. Okay. So yeah, Wells, I think he might have been one of the last picks. Yeah, just bad run from Plaz this season. Didn't really have much going for him. Moving into season 3, though, this is where we could see where his game was headed. Because obviously he was really running the Brown team, I believe, with James on his at his stead. Obviously, he pitched the unanimous vote on Caden, took him out, and then in that crazy vote to get Jazzy vote, Class was really locked in. He knew he had to take Jazzy Boy out. He wasn't even hesitating about voting himself like James was pitching, and he wasn't trying to vote out James, which Jazzy was kind of pitching in the revote. He stuck to his guns, he knew what to do, he made the right moves. Problem is he was on the disaster tribe. He had no runaway, he just kept losing. And when Crunchy was sent to his team, in that PvP fight, which Plaz beat James in a PvP fight, Plaz lost to Crunchy in a PvP fight, and he just short of making the merge. Then on his third run, we do get to see Plaz making a pretty good game for himself. Sticking with the Garchomp Badger Scolie alliance, he was really set up in the early game. He had an easy first few episodes where Lucas quit, unanimous vote on Scolie, and then he made the decision, along with Badger and Garchomp, to just drop Scolie because he was dog shit. They also had some pretty easy people that just kind of got screwed over onto their team in Perified, Paul, maybe, and Datcrit. And then they reached the merge finally after forcefully weakening the other team. Um, and then Badger got taken out, but there was leeway as Yeet flipped to their cause after Badger was taken out to take out Bubby, and that really helped them advance their spot in the game, and they got their way in taking out Nathan despite Yeet flipping back to Nathan's side. Garchomp still beat Nathan in the PvP fight. So, yeah, in that situation, Garchomp and Plaz in a pretty good spot in the final three. All they had to do was beat Yeats in that final three challenge, and they would have been in the final two together. Problem is, Yeet won and took out Plaz, and Plaz was just short of being in the finale, which I think Plaz probably would have won the finale of this season. Problem is, I mean, maybe not. I don't know. Problem is that we have to consider, Plaz had one extremely bad run, but his promise that he showed on season 3 and a really strong run on season 4 showcase his ability to make it into the B tier, and that his season 1 run isn't indicative of his worst traits. Let's move on to number 17. This is a one-time player who really got screwed in a very unique twist that I'm glad I never did again, in a really shitty challenge that really hindered him as well. This is none other than at number 20, nope, 17, Fira. Fira was set up pretty well in the pre-merge. He was, I believe, he was in on the vote with Tako to vote out Avaughn. And that is great for Fira because he got his way. Now, he was also in danger. He did have to win that PvP fight or he was out of the game there. But he did clutch up. Problem is, while he was safe the rest of the pre-merge, once he hit the merge, there was this double elimination twist, which was really dangerous for everybody that season, but extremely dangerous for Fira because out of everyone on that cast, Fira had very little connections to anyone on the cast, whereas everyone else was very tight knit. Thankfully, well, not thankfully because he was still voted out here, this was a very chaotic elimination where there were two votes on Fira, which I believe I figured out who the votes were for. I believe because there were four names thrown out: Fira, Datcrit, Crunchy, and Monkey. Fira and Datcrit were the ones taken out. I believe, I'm pretty sure Crunchy and Monkey voted each other. If what Crunchy says is to be believed, which I don't really know, because Datcrit was like, yeah, I know you voted me, Crunchy. He was so determined that he knew. I don't know. I could be wrong. But assuming that Crunchy and Monkey voted each other, I did try to read books, by the way, for some of these votes. Um, Datcrit and Fira obviously voted each other, and then Tako voted for Datcrit. He would have had to, and then Wells voted for Fira because just going based off of team lines, because Fire and Taka were on the original team together, and Datcrit and Wells were on an original team together, so I figured they just voted together. You know, I think that makes sense. Yeah. Let me look at what else Fire. I guess that was kind of it. Fira, I don't think had too much longevity past this point because of his limited connections. And while I would have loved to see him play again, I'm not too sure how he would have done. I think on a season 5 he might have been able to do well. I don't think he would have done well at all in season 6. I think he just would have been picked off early like all the post season 3 people were. But let's move on to number 14. This is another one-time player. We have Bubby. Now, Bubby is somebody who was a bit of a wall. I don't know if I agree with this placement. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be so dead ass. I'm gonna move Bubby. I think I'm gonna move Bubby. I'm gonna move Bubby below Nathan. I'm moving Bubby below Nathan. Okay. That means that number 16 is actually Nathan. I guess I'll just edit this above or before Nathan and Garchomp. My problem with Bubby's game is that he really was just a shield that Nathan and Yeet could have used in the merge. While he was a solid number, he had no problem flipping on Bubby when he saw it advantageous to him, and that's really what happened. While Bubby was in a good spot in the pre-merge and taking out Datcrit in a unanimous votes, I believe. No, he wasn't even there. Bubby was in danger in a PvP fight, which he was capable enough to win. And again, in the first merge vote, the same thing happened again, where Bubby was put in the PvP fight against Badger, and he won. Which you do have to give him credit for winning those fights, of course. But it just raises the man's threat level as someone you got to take out, and that's exactly why I think Yeet flipped for this vote to take him out. So while Bubby had a lot of potential on the season, and did particularly well on the failed season 6, he just lies here in my opinion. So now you're gonna see uh my thoughts on Nathan and Garchomp. Sorry to spoil that they're next, but whatever. Let's move on to number 16. This is someone who had one really bad run. Well, even then, it's really questionable if you'd even call this a bad run because it was so circumstantial what happened. One really strong run, irrefutably, I'd argue. Coming in at number 17, 16, fuck, we have none other than Nathan the God himself. Now, Nathan is from seasons 2 and 4. On season 2, Nathan had the right idea in voting out CDI for strength purposes. However, CDI had the immunity idol, and really, if CDI didn't have that idol and Niners still stuck with CDI, there's no thought in my mind that Nathan doesn't beat CDI in a PvP battle and Nathan wins the fight, and then Niners probably sent packing next time they lose. Maybe, probably. So Nathan could have done well on season 2, but he really just got cucked immediately by that idol being idled out. Then we return on season 4, where Nathan had an actual good run, not interrupted by any idols. Nathan was on the winning team the entirety of the pre-merge, except for I think one vote. It was like Paul or whatever, maybe. I don't really know anymore. I think Datcrit was voted back on his team, actually. That was the team. That was the time they lost. I don't know how Paul got back on the green. Whatever. Point is, they voted out Datcrit. I think unanimously. No, 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 no. That's right. So it was a 2-2 vote. Datcrit. I'm not sure who voted with Datcrit. I should have looked into that. Somebody voted with Datcrit. Against Bubby. Might have been Yeet, if I were to guess. Then Nathan and Bubby voted for Datcrit. In that case, if I'm correct, then Nathan got his way. Um, I'm just assuming that because he flipped on Bubby later, which we're gonna talk about in a second. Yeah. So we go to the merge where it's the 3-3 vote. They get their way. Badgers sent packing, in which Bubby is still a massive shield for them. For Nathan specifically at this time, because votes aren't being put on Nathan, they're being put on Bubby for this vote and the next vote. Problem is, he flipped on Nathan for this vote, which is something you gotta knock him for. But Nathan is able to recover because Yeet voted with Nathan following this vote to the end, sending Nathan in a PvP battle against Garchomp, in which Garchomp beat Nathan really clutchly. Now, Nathan, assuming Nathan wins this, which he probably should have, if we're being honest, Nathan probably should have won that fight. I think Nathan probably still loses to Yeet in the final two. I would assume. There is a chance that Yeet could have beaten Nathan, but who knows? Or fuck, other way, that Nathan could have beat Yeet, but who knows? Let's move on to number 15. This is another three-time player. And the first person who I believe had a really bad run on All Stars. Yeah, that we're talking about here. Legends, whatever. I'll probably keep calling it All Stars on accident. This is someone we call Garchomp Games. Now, Garchomp is a divisive player with extreme highs and questionable lows. Let's start with it all on season 4. Garchomp really implemented himself really strongly into an alliance of people that he didn't really know. Actually, I don't think he knew any of them at all, except for vaguely Plaz from my Twitch streams. That was really the only connection he had to the people on his tribe, team, whatever. It's Total Drama, not Survivor. So he was in that team alliance with Plaz, Badger, and Scolie early on, as I've talked about a few times, and Scolie sucked dick and balls and they flipped on him. Unanimously voted out CDI before that. They had all those easy votes with Paul and Perified. Then into the merge, he had the right idea. He stuck loyal with Badger. Unfortunately, Badger lost in the PvP fight with Bubby. Then Yeet flipped to their cause to take out Bubby, which is great for them. And then they got their way with the Nathan vote. However, Garchomp was put in a position where he was the target, not Plaz, of the PvP fight for Nathan, in which Nathan still lost, though. So say that what you will about Nathan and Yeet there, I guess. And then Yeet takes Garchomp to the finale over Plaz, which Garchomp almost wins this finale. It was really close. Garchomp had an impressive run in those duels this season, I will say, and really proved people wrong, where he was always the sacrificial lamb, but always came out on top, except in the finale, he just fell short. but still had a very good run on season 4. That was easily his best run. On season 5, whatever happened with him in challenges and PvP, it went out the window. Sure, he was sucking dick and balls on season 4's parkour challenge. Not like this. He was unintentionally killing teammates in challenges. He was doing just bad left and right. He wasn't listening to the challenge rules and just getting owned in the Pokemon fight challenge. It was pitiful to watch. That being said, his social game was so strong. He had Dawson in his corner really till the end. Well, I wouldn't say that. They flipped on each other at the ends, which is something they really shouldn't have done, as you can tell by their back-to-back eliminations. They really should have voted together and stuck together. Now, I can understand Garchomp's thought process because Dawson is extremely good in challenges. You want to take him out eventually. Can Dawson just kind of sweep the game if you take him one more vote? I feel like it's kind of similar to that Jesse 43 situation with Cody on Survivor 43, where was Jesse right in taking out Cody when he did? It kind of cooked him in the late game. Well, would he have had another chance to take out Dawson or Cody? I don't know. Probably not. So there's a lot to praise Garchomp for on season 5. There's a lot of eyebrows to be raised with Garchomp on season 5. I also don't really hold Garchomp's really bad season 6 run against him because yes, he was voted off unanimously in a votes episode 2. He did survive one vote for what that's worth. I assume he wanted to work with Connor and Inkling, but the numbers just weren't there for them. Datcrit, Tako, and Crunchy just had too much of a solidified bond together that was ever really going to work when Connor had just chosen to vote with them instead on that first vote for Inkling. Garchomp was really put into a corner, and he really couldn't have done anything, I don't think, to have gotten himself out of that situation. So I am pretty impressed by Garchomp's run overall, especially as someone who really hadn't played too much Minecraft game shows before this. Okay. Coming in at number 13, we have another one-time player, the only one-time player from season 1 who did not return. This is an interesting case here. We have Dallas. Now, Dallas is somebody who is a ride or die of tacos, but a really bad first episode. He was not in on the plan to take out Datcrit at all in episode 1 of season 1, and it really shows that, yeah, he was probably in trouble if he wasn't a capable social person for Taco to reach out to following voting out Datcrit as someone he was willing to flip on his number 1 previously in Avaughn for to forge a new tight bond that could have dominated the game. And really, this could have happened. Problem is Dallas's internet and Wi-Fi was cut out in the Final Four challenge and really fucked over himself, obviously, but also Taco. And yeah, that's how his run ended. I would have loved to see Dallas. I tried to get him back on season 6. I think both attempts. He just wasn't feeling it. He's kind of been out of the game show phase for years now. So it is what it is, but he had an impressive first season that was able to flip a bad situation on its head and forge something that could have taken him to the end game. Could he have won? I'm not sure. Taco's not particularly great at PvP. I don't think Dallas is either. And that's exactly why I think Taco was willing to flip on Avaughn in the first place. Let's move on to number 12 here. This is another one-time player, big challenge beast, who had a good social game, but when his time was up, his time was simply up. This is number 12, Dawson. Now, Dawson is another player, another bear. Look at them lined up, who had a strong social game the entirety of the pre-merge. Obviously, he was in on the unanimous votes of Matthew, and not even unanimous. He probably led the charge for Kevin, if I were to guess. He guaranteed Garchomp's safety and carried him there when he was probably supposed to go home. Now, let's move into the swap phase where he still has Garchomp on his side. He has Xander and Fun Vibes ready to work with him. He's in such a power spot. He takes out Jazzy Boy, then he cuts Xander, keeping Fun as an ally. But then they lose again. Cut Fun, make the merge. Now, in the swap phase, they probably lost too many challenges for him to have much longevity, and I think a big blunder that Dawson made, which I can understand, was taking out Datcrit. I assume Dawson's perspective here was that he should have no problem soloing every single challenge because the rest of them really aren't all that great at the challenges compared to Dawson, who's a fucking tryhard. Problem is, taking out Datcrit really made him public enemy number one, so much so his number one Garchomp flipped on him to take him out. But, right? Yeah. Do I have this vote written down? I hope I do. This is something I want to look at. What happened here? Final five. Yes, I do. Okay. No, I don't. Wait, do I? Yes, I do. Okay. Garchomp was really left out of the vote here. I really should have talked about some of Garchomp's out misplays on season 5 more in his section. Whatever. Garchomp was the sole vote for Inkling. Marlon and Logan voted for Dawson, which they got their way. Dawson and Inkling voted for Garchomp. And yeah. In the end, on the revote, everyone just unanimously pulled their votes into Dawson and sent him packing. It was just not worth keeping him around so late in the game. And that was really what costed him. I really wanted him on Legends. I think he would have made a really fun and worthy competitor. We just didn't get to see it because he literally just forgot. That's the sole reason he wasn't on. He forgot we were filming that day. He could have made it. He just forgot. So unfortunate. All right. Well, let's move on to number 5. Someone you might be shocked to see so high up, but I think it makes a lot of sense. At number 5, I do have Crunchy Actor. Now, Crunchy is someone you could probably argue is a top 2 greatest unwinning game of all time. I'd probably lean more towards top 3 when you include Niner. Maybe not, but regardless, Crunchy's run on season 3 is really something to be inspired of, or whatever. I don't fucking know. Not inspired. I'm fucking tired, man. It's 12:15. Okay, I've been going for like an hour and a half now. Okay, I'm fucking hungry. Give me some respect on my name, please. He does try to vote with Avaughn to take out Fira, which does not go in his favor. But from that point onward, he cements himself in a good, strong alliance with Tako and Fira, where in that hectic double elimination, where he does try to vote out for Monkey, which is admittedly a bad move. It doesn't backfire on him at all, as supposedly if only Monkey's voting him, he's still safe. And it's Fire sent packing in his stead because Fire was a good shield for him that people didn't know, so they were more tempted to take him out over Crunchy, who would probably be more open to working with them since they have more interpersonal connections over the past few years. Then, of course, Crunchy goes on a bit of an immunity run in which he's able to see Monkey taken out, and Tako, he decides, okay, I'm kind of looking at it, maybe Crunchy's too high, because how much of this feels like actual, like, meticulous gameplay? I don't know, because he doesn't even, like, pick to take Wells with him, necessarily. He does, like, a pick a number thing, and it's kind of funny, but it's also kind of like, you should know to take Wells with you, right? Regardless. He's making the right decisions that benefit his game, winning the right amount of immunities, and you could argue that maybe him winning immunities is indicative of bad gameplay, that he kind of needs those over someone like the other people in the cast more. But I'd argue on a total drama where immunities are very important. At the end of the day, you need to win a challenge to win total drama. That's pretty important. And I give Crunchy a lot of credit for that. Maybe I place him too high though. But moving into Legends, I think he has another good run on him here, at least in the pre-merge. He is the last pre-merge boot. He is a part of the Garchomp and Inkling plans. Um, and he does correctly identify that he needs to take out this Tako and Datcrit duo, and he takes in Connor successfully to make that happen. However, of course, Tako and Datcrit are just too tight and they can't move in Tako, so Connor just decides to take out Crunchy instead. Pretty misfire from him there. Loki, the more I'm talking about it, Crunchy's too high. I gotta move him down. I love Crunch. Crunchy played a good game. How good of a game? I think he played a better game than Wells. Maybe he didn't. Overall, I think Crunchy played. Maybe he didn't. I'm kind of convincing myself out of the Crunchy train here. I'm gonna put Crunchy there, low key. I think he played a very similar game to Inkling. Okay, yeah. I guess I'm moving this spot here and spoiling a lot. But it's okay. That's just how it is, I guess, in the world of whatever this is. So. Sorry about that. Sorry for spoiling all the people ahead of Crunchy. But yeah, you're probably not watching this much anyway. You're probably just watching for one or two people. We're gonna be continuing a bit of a trend here with number 11 now. As we move into someone else from this season, and someone who also had a really bad run on All Stars, unfortunately. Someone who probably could have benefited from Dawson being present on the season. We have at number 11, Inkling Koopa. Well, Inkling Koopa was someone I was really rooting for on season 5. He made it to the final 3, and I think he played excellently up until that point. He was winning a lot of the challenges, to be fair, and really the only person he had to send out. Wow, I don't think he was involved in a single vote until the merge. Wow. I mean, good on him, man. Yeah, he holy shit. Correctfully deduced to vote out Datcrit as someone who could beat the comps. And then he tried voting with Dawson, which didn't go his way, and you can kind of point against him. Thing is, he was able to recover and he won immunity, which is a lot more important on Total Drama than Survivor. And he was able to survive in a position where he probably would have gotten fourth. And in that situation, in the top 4, do I have that written down? I don't believe I do. Don't believe I do. I do. Inkling voted Logan, which did not happen. Garchomp voted Marlon, I believe. And then Marlon and Logan voted out Garchomp. And then Inkling just didn't win that final challenge, which just really went against him because he really had to win that if he wanted to go to the finale. Then we go to All Stars, which is another season, another case where I'm not really taking anything away from Inkling's game because he just did not have the runway on this team or really on this season. Inkling was just a unanimous first boot on a cast where he did not have deep connections, where everyone else did. And that's just kind of where the eggs lay. I don't know if that's a proper saying, but that's where kind of fell apart for him, unfortunately. And I think Inkling's Season 5 game, at least in the merge, really showcases his ability to do extremely well socially and I guess physically in the pre merge. So that brings us into number 10, who is a player who would be a lot higher if we were counting the failed Season 6. This is the player who gets one placement higher than Inkling on their first season. This is Logan. I'm putting in the B tier. Logan. Logan. Logan is somebody who played extremely well throughout. Correctfully? I don't know. I'm losing my mind. I'm saying so many words at miles per minute. This video is so long and it's just me talking the whole fucking time. Oh, okay. Logan and Matthew. Okay, Logan voted out Matthew. He correctly was in on that. He correctly was in on the Kevin plan. Good on him. Then we move to the swap phase where I don't believe he ever had to vote anybody else. I could be incorrect. Yeah, correct. He was not chosen to be since eliminated by Xander, which is pretty good, I guess. Xander didn't know that, to be fair. Maybe he would have done that if he knew. I don't know. Doesn't really matter. Point is, at the merge, Logan is at a really under the radar position, and he's able to team up with Marlon and really take control of the game at pretty much every opportunity. They unanimously take out Datcrit. They're the votes responsible for sending Dawson packing. They send out Garchomp, and I believe it was Marlon who won the final maybe it was Logan. Either or, whichever one of them took out Inkling at Final Three and cemented themselves in the Final Two as a duo. Great stuff there. However, we move to Legends, and he's another person, as I've been saying the past few times, just did not have the leeway on Legends. However, I do have to criticize Logan a little bit more than the other people on this season because Logan was someone who was just outwardly, I spoke to him before the filming of the season. He was so outwardly against working with Marlon on Legends in a position where he really kind of had to. Whether he wanted to or not, I think he kind of had to make something work with Marlon. Could he have? Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe he was a dead man walking regardless, but I think he kind of had to try something with Marlon because otherwise, as we saw, he was just kind of a sitting duck the whole time. But he did survive the vote over Marlon, which you do got to give him credit for. Now we will move on to a player who is extremely similar in pretty much every facet of the game to Logan. This is basically the same player, except one placement higher, one placement lower, coming in at number 10, I believe, right? Is this number 10? This is number 10. No, this is not. Wait. Oh, you're not here? I'm changing that. I don't give a shit. We have Marlon. So Marlon. Marlon is a player, third highest rated winner, I think, on this list. No, he's the lowest rated winner on this list, I believe. I think. Did I forget someone? No, I didn't. Okay. You could debate, we could definitely debate this and the next person who's also a winner all day long. Marlon had an extremely strong merge on season 5. That being said, he did not have to play the game in the merge or the pre-merge of season 5, so his relationships were not tested to a point in the game where there were big targets, two big shields that needed to be taken down. Much of them, pretty much everyone on the cast was basically a shield, except for probably Garchomp, which by then Marlon and Inkling were successful in just taking out. Marlon and Inkling, Marlon and Logan were successful in taking out. And they, as I alluded to with Logan, was successful in taking out Datcrit and Dawson and Garchomp and Inkling. A very impressive late game run. Problem is they just didn't really have to, you know, play much of the beginning game. I really just talked about all this. But this is kind of just for like if Marlon's not watching Logan's section. What does cement Logan as a higher placement? In my opinion, is well, obviously he won. He beat Logan in a final challenge, which is very crucial. I think in a situation where you have to win a challenge to win Total Drama Bedrock, that is a very crucial thing. And Marlon proved that while it was close, Marlon is more likely to win in a final two against Logan, I think, most of the time. Now, you can also point for two season 6, where Marlon was basically dead on arrival. The amount of pre-gaming against this man was fucking unreal. He was so cooked. So I don't, again, just like I said with Garchomp, Inkling, and Logan, I don't really take that much against Marlon's game because of him getting targeted here. That being said, maybe he could have, I don't know, not bothered them as much. I don't know. That's all I can really think of. Um, Yeah, even still, I don't think he would have had much a chance because of the long legacy that like CJ and Wells have had together and Yeet. Such a long-lasting friendship that that's had. I don't think Marlon could really interfere with in any meaningful way, especially in a spot where Logan didn't even want to work with him on this season. It's I guess that also kind of bodes badly for Marlon too, that not even Logan wanted to work with him. But still, whatever. Marlon, if on a season where there's a more diverse grouping of people from where they come from, not just NC for the most part, I have a lot of faith in Marlon to make it very deep in the game. Now, we're going to move on to someone, our next winner at the number 9 spot here. Number 8 spot, sorry. This is a player who I've really grown fond of their games as I've gone back and looked at really all of them. And at number 8, this is our second winner on our list. This is Wells coming in at the B slot. Now, we look at Wells on season 2, and we can see, obviously, he was in the power position with Yeet on the first vote to take out Plaz, where Monkey was kind of out of the loop. We do see that following this, Wells does quit the game, but if Wells didn't quit the game and they just voted out Monkey, I think Wells has a really solid chance of going to the end. If not, maybe winning? I don't know. I'm not really sure how his bow and arrow skills are, but I think on this first season, he was easily merge bound. I mean, obviously, he would have made merge, but assuming he replaces Monkey, I think really, the only thing that changes is maybe Niner beating Wells in the finale. I think the rest of the elimination order would stay the same, because then Monkey would be fifth. I think Connor stays fourth. Yeet stays third. I think Niner would have beaten Wells in the finale. That's what I'm thinking. But we move to season 3, where Wells is in yet another power position. He has this trusted ally he's gained from Monkey in season 2, and they work together. They unanimously pick off Connor, along with Datcrit. Then we move into the merge, which is the next time they really have to play, in the double elimination bullshit twist thing, where Wells never even is brought up as an option, really. He does not catch a single vote, where 4 out of 6 people had a vote this episode. It's really impressive, I think. And Wells successfully votes off Fira as one of his targets alongside Datcrit, while Datcrit is also sent packing. I assume Datcrit was pretty easily working with Monkey and Wells on this season, but he was taken out here. Now, Wells's game is in a bit of a tricky spot here. In the final 4, Crunchy does win immunity, and on this spot, does Monkey get unanimously voted off? He does get unanimously voted off. Wells flips over to Crunchy and Taco's side, trying to build a good merit with them, I presume, trying to give them really any reason to take them to the end. And in the end, Crunchy wins the final 3 challenges well and takes Wells over Tako. Now, I'm pretty sure that wasn't really for any gameplay reason, not because Crunchy actually thought that Wells was an easier opponent than Tako, which he probably did think, but it was decided by like a pick a number thing that Crunchy did. So that also is another pro for Wells's game that you got to take into account that it wasn't he didn't take Wells to the end because he thought he was an easy beat. He did it because it just kind of happened that way. It was a luck way, which, you know, just could have easily worked out poorly for him, but same could be said for Taco's game there. We do not see Wells again until season 6, where he has another pretty impressive run for the most parts, where on the Heroes team, he's once again reunited with Monkey, where they are another tight duo on this season, and they have a majority alliance with Yeet and CJ as well, where they take off Marlon and Logan in unanimous votes pretty easily. Then we do see that Yeet, unfortunately, had to quit the game for reasons that I don't exactly know. I do not know at all, actually. I just know it was something that came up, and that's all I will say at that. I do not hold ill will towards Yeet, is what I'm trying to say for leaving on this season. Um, from there, Crunchy, nope, that's pre-merge. This is where Wells's game kind of falls apart for me on season 6. Wells made a horrific tactical decision to target CJ right here. This was not the time to do that. At this moment in time, the right move was absolutely to take a shot at Datcrit and Tako, that tight duo that was running the game. And instead, what ended up happening was Tako and Datcrit were able to take a shot at Monkey instead, which great on Wells that it wasn't him, but despite Wells really doing all the damage, that got Monkey sent out, by the way. Wells is he did that and really cost himself the game at that point. He was cooked. He was able to send Monkey in the PvP. He lost against CJ, of course. Good on them for pulling in Connor on that vote too. But in the end, yeah, a pretty wet fart end to Wells's game. But as a whole, he did play very strongly on that season. Over the course of his career, I feel very confidently in placing him here on the tier list. I might take an eating break here, dude. This has been going on for an hour 20. Another problem to point out with Wells's game, actually, is that not only did he admit to telling CJ that he was the one who plotted against him, he did it before CJ was even done with the duel. It was mid-duel. He shouldn't have said that until he knew that CJ would have lost, which he didn't even lose, so he shouldn't have said it at all, is what I'm trying to say. Alrighty, well, coming in now at number 7, this is our third winner in a row, and this is the end of the B tier, actually. This could be a controversial pick having him so high up, but I'm actually going to go with Datcrit here at number 7. Now, Datcrit is very infamously the very first boot of the season. He did not have any agency in that. He was completely out of it. Dallas was completely out of it. He really should have tried working something with Dallas. I guess they just couldn't. And yeah, it was a pretty horrific start. But we do see Deckert return several times. He's on literally every season except season 2. It's kind of ridiculous. And that's really been able to help him cement his legacy and show that he is a good player at Total Drama Bedrock. We see him return on season 3 in a very wonky situation where he's taken out in that double elimination where it's the 2 to 2 to 1 to 1 vote. Pretty crazy stuff. If that was a single elimination, I have a lot of faith in his ability to defeat Fira in a duel. And from there, I'd imagine that him, Monkey, and Wells probably could have dominated the rest of season, take out Tako and Crunchy, and Decker probably could have won in that situation. But the twist kind of screwed them, the shitty challenge kind of screwed them in that spot. So, in that situation, that's how that kind of plays out in my mind. Move on to season 4 now. This is another kind of weak season from Datcrit, where he is kind of swap screwed in an extent, but to a weird degree here. He is on the winning team until after CDI loses, which is when he's voted onto the team, or CDI puts him onto the team or whatever. And then in that spot, Datcrit is in serious risk of being swap screwed. But Scolie is so ass that it really just saves Datcrit. And he's okay, and he lives another day. And then he's saved again, well, to an extent, because I then do the twist where each team votes someone from their own team onto the other. And this is when Perified and Datcrit switch spots. And it's for that reason I believe that Datcrit was sent home over someone else, like maybe a Bubby or a Nathan, from someone like Yeet's perspective. Let me check the votes actually. No, no, no. Okay, that's right. I forgot. I think Yeet voted with him to vote for Bubby. Datcrit lost the PvP duel to Bubby. And if he had won that PvP duel, I think he also has another good run on his hands this season. There are so many other shields that he's playing with that I think he could kind of slip through the cracks. Possibly. Maybe he would also just be targeted like Bubby and then taken out by Yeet flipping on that vote. That's also another pretty plausible possibility there. Now we switch over to season 5, and this is a season where I think he is safe until the merge, and then at that very first opportunity, he's just taken out because he loses immunity, and it's just a really easy consensus vote. Pretty weak showing from Datcrit there. Um, Not much he could have done. Then, of course, we move on to Legends. This is really the season that cements him this high on the tier list because he played one of the most, I think maybe the second best winning game of all time on this season, playing such a tight duo with Tako. He's really handed these situations where they're running their initial tribe with Inkling and Garchomp getting sent out immediately, leaving Connor with no options. They take out Crunchy because Crunchy was gunning for Datcrit here. Actually, I haven't had an opportunity to bring this up yet. Actually, yeah. So Crunchy and Connor take a shot at Datcrit. They tell Oh, I guess I did with Connor. Whatever. Um, I assume they tried to get Taco in on the plan, but of course Taco is so tight with Datcrit, he doesn't switch the vote, and I assume he convinces Taco or Connor to just switch with them and just vote out Crunchy, and so they do, and so Crunchy's sent packing. In a situation where it's now a 3-3 merge, it's pretty dangerous, and you'd think Datcrit would be in a lot of trouble. With Connor just trying to flip on him, he's actually in a pretty safe spot because of Wells's buffoonery trying to target CJ here. And that move really just cooks the fucking heroes for the rest of the season. And Monkey and Wells are taken out back to back. And Connor's taken out in a situation where CJ is trying to help him, but Connor loses the PvP fight to Taco. And Deckert isn't even the target of that vote, where he's basically just safe there. I think Decker won immunity that round. No, did CJ win immunity that round? I think CJ won immunity that round. Um, yeah. And then from there, all they had to do was defeat CJ in the trivia, in which they do. They go to the finale. Taco, I guess Taco is defeated by Datcrit in the end. And they had such a dominant win, such an iconic duo. I really love their win. And it really boosters Datcrit's reputation. But again, the reason he is not in the A tier, I'd argue, is because of seasons like season 1, season 4, season 5 that really drag down his reputation slightly out of the A tier. But now we do move into the A tier, starting off with number 6, somebody can't even fathom I had so low in the original tier list. This is none other than Niner. Niner is someone I'm pissed I never got able to return for a 3.0 because fuck man, his first 2 seasons are pretty good showcases. Now season 1, obviously he quits at the first vote possible, but let's be real. If he wasn't so sick that he felt he needed to leave, then Caden easily gets sent home here. And then CJ and Niner have a much easier time moving forward. Now, I th- yes, in this situation where they lose again, CJ is still definitely the one they're voting out. I think Niner is being saved and brought into the merge, and then it would be Yeet and Niner versus Taco and Dallas. Dallas is still Internet would still be taken out. That would not change. Then Taco would probably still lose. And then Yeet versus Niner in the final 2. I think still goes to Yeet. But still, Niner could have been finale bound if he didn't quit the season, is my point. Then we move next season to season 2, where he has a dominant win screwed over by me. I fucked over this man. I've been pushing on him in the original tier list. Look at this. I'm at the bottom of D tier. D tier. This man played elites. I'm losing my voice over this period, if you can't tell. It's kind of funny. Basically, Niner was in with CDI in a where it could have been dangerous initially, but CDI had the idol, and Niner knew about it, I assume, because he told CDI about it, or CDI, I assume, told Niner about it, which is the correct read, because then Niner, therefore, working with him, told CDI to play the idol to save himself, correctly sending out Nathan, and then they correctly voted out Connor, and then I misread the fucking votes. CDI was sent home instead of Connor. And I think if that happens, Wells still quits for Monkey there. I think we're in a top four where we see probably, depending on who wins immunity in the top four, maybe I should check real quick. I think that's probably a good call. Okay, so Yeet would have won the challenge, which means that, I mean, I assume that doesn't change. I don't think CDI would have been particularly great in the Ender Pearl challenge. Maybe he could have, honestly. But regardless, let's just say Yeet still wins. They're gonna vote Monkey into the PvP fight. Maybe they vote in CDI? I don't know. They either vote in Niner or CDI. I think Niner probably beats Monkey, so they might vote in CDI, and then CDI might lose it there. Holy shit. Squeeze me. So, I don't know. I was kind of envisioning CDI being finale bound, but maybe not, like I thought. But either way, he had a better, deeper run cemented in him. That should have been given to him, but it was not. Why am I talking about CDI right now? I'm supposed to be talking about Niner. Regardless, Niner was really set up, and even still, made the correct call to take out Yeet. Now, granted, little industry secret I've never divulged, because I edited it out of the video. I kind of leaked that Yeet won Season 1 as an incentive for Niner not to take him, because I didn't want an immediate double winner. Um, kind of fucking rigged, not gonna lie. Regardless, Niner probably still was leaning to take him out. And he takes Monkey with him to the end, in which Monkey wins, but I think Niner still stood a very strong chance there. And if CDI could have been taken with him to the end, Niner handedly beats him pretty easily. So, that's my thoughts on Niner. I wish we could have seen him come back for 3.0, finally get that win he deserved, but he's been kind of ignoring my game show invites for the past 5 years, so them's the breaks, pal. Let's move on to number four now. We have our top four people. I think this is pretty handedly the Mount Rushmore of Total Drama Bedrock, which might surprise some people for one person, but I don't imagine that this person is much of a surprise. Coming in at number four, we do have Mr. fucking Monkey. This man, this fucking man. Mr. Monkey is a player that's, well, shouldn't be as good as he is statistically. I mean, I am pretty negative on Monkey's first run. I've talked to him about it before. He kind of agrees how lucky he was on his first season. I mean, just look at it this way, right? He wasn't even involved on the Plaz vote off, and then Wells quits the game for him, and then, I mean, from there, he's able to do well. I don't even know if he's in on the Connor votes. And then Niner takes him to the end where Monkey just happens to beat him. It's not a particularly great winning game, if we're being honest here. But the connections that Monkey was able to build on this season really help him cement long lasting runs on his next two seasons. On season three, especially, despite everybody knowing that he won, he's still able to make it to the top four. Now, granted, he only goes to tribal one time, whatever elimination ceremony, one time, and that is with the Connor vote, where it's unanimous against him. And on the double elimination, a time where you might think Monkey would be a target because he does have that winner status, Datcrit is still there as an ally, being a perfect shield for him in this crazy time that you definitely need it. And while Crunchy, I believe, still votes for him and Monkey still votes for Crunchy, neither of them are voted out. Monkey's still safe and unscathed through this crazy fucking vote. And from there, he does get taken out when Crunchy wins immunity, and Wells does flip on him, which does suck for Monkey because they were such a tight duo. But them's the breaks, I guess. We do see Monkey return on season 6, where he's cemented in the Power Alliance with Wells, Yeet, and CJ, and they successfully take out Logan and Marlon in unanimous votes. And then Yeet has his little quit situation, and Monkey then progresses. But Monkey being taken out on season 6 wasn't even his fault. It was Wells's fault. Wells is really the one who screwed everything up for Monkey because Wells was the one targeting CJ. Monkey just got dragged into it with Wells because he was his number one ally. And in the end, Monkey just caught a stray bullet before Wells could get shot. And that was kind of how Monkey got taken out in this crazy vote where everyone's name was being thrown out. So Monkey had a really strong run on Legends. Really, everyone in the merge did. And I think he's cemented himself as a real legend of the game, despite winning a season that maybe he shouldn't have. But regardless, I just, it's so impressive how, especially in a time where oh my God, where people in general who weren't tight knit in the community, had trouble having deep runs. Monkey was just able to have that consistently on this show. And that's great for him, and why he's this high up. I'm fucking tired, if you can't tell. I'm not really forming coherent sentences anymore. Let's move on to number 3. This is probably the person you're eyeing that you're maybe shocked is this high with some of his placements. And this is the most easily screwed over player in the history of the show. At number 3, we have CJ. CJ Ninja 07, my boy. Wow. And I mean screwed over. Because, look, season 1, it's not even his fault he loses the challenge. He has a pass on that final 6 round. He wasn't in danger there. It was either Niner or Caden, I'm sure. And even then, it was not going to be him. Problem is, CJ's taken out in a challenge where Caden absolutely fucking sucked. Caden did terrible, and CJ had to deal with a terrible fucking voting twist kind of thing I did, where because there was only 2 people left on their team, in Caden and CJ, I had everyone else on the other team vote for someone on their team, and CJ just there was no reason not to vote CJ in that situation, and he got taken out right before the merge, where he could have done serious damage with Cartrell. We do see CJ again, but it's not until season 5. And oh my God, holy screwed, bro. On season 5, I mean, there was just nothing he could have done. He avoids elimination all season, and then Xander gets eliminated. I tell Xander, pick someone on the other team to switch teams. Okay, you're thinking, oh, maybe CJ got swap screwed. That really sucks for him. No, he's just automatically eliminated. Shout out Tako for that twist idea. I kind of regret that one, not gonna lie. But it is until Legends that we see CJ really playing the game that he always could have in a situation where he is in this majority alliance taking off Logan and Marlon. He's working very closely with Yeet, and Yeet's situation where he's got to quit really backfires on CJ. They were going to be a super tight duo that really could have ran the season, I believe. But alas, he had to leave, and Wells then is flipping on CJ for who knows what reason. Maybe CJ did something there. I don't know. I think it was just CJ's reputation as a challenge beast, which, to be fair, he was dominating the challenges in that portion of the game, and he was really safe. until the first time he could go home. He tried voting with Connor, sending in Tako for Connor to take out in a PvP duel. Connor was unsuccessful in that final four duel. CJ made the correct read while Connor and Tako were fighting that whole time. CJ already knew to vote for Tako. It wasn't a thing where Connor actually had to convince him. He knew the right move. He was just letting the drama play out for the cameras. And I applaud him for that, of course. Unfortunately, CJ just didn't get the trivia down, or I think that was the final three. Yeah, the final three was trivia, and he just didn't know it the best, and he had to. And in the end, it cost him, and he didn't make it to the end, where he probably could have won. Maybe he would have lost to Datcrit, but who knows? If he ended up winning, he probably would have taken Tako and probably beaten him pretty handedly, I think. Well, yeah, that's kind of it for CJ. He's one of the most unlucky players we've ever had, but with really the ability to go far on really every run, I think. Now, maybe not in season 5 because I think he probably would have been targeted. Well, maybe even not there because CJ, Dackert, and Dawson could have worked together more. Well, they probably wouldn't have considering that they went for Dackert, but I assume maybe they could have had more runway. Maybe CJ could have won more challenges and actually gotten himself to the end game and not just gotten picked off like Dawson and Datcrit. Season 1, as I alluded to, he and Yeet could have ran the game together like they were also couldn't do on season 6. That's kind of funny. Um, but yeah, so there you go. And now we have our top two. This is the last member of the A tier because, spoiler alert, I think in order to be an S tier, you have to win the game. And these other winners, I don't think quite make it to even the A tier. In Monkey, I think his actual winning game just isn't that kind of criteria to be an S tier player. Problem is, this is the greatest to never win Total Drama Bedrock. This player just could never scratch it out, and that is what's keeping him from the S tier. This is at number 2, Mr. Tacos, the one and only greatest to never win. Let's go back to season 1. Of course, he is running this entire season. Right off rip, he's with Avaughn, voting out Datcrit instantly, and then he flips on Avaughn to form a new tight duo with Dallas, which he sends home Avaughn. Then he is screwed over at the final four because Dallas's Wi-Fi or internet disconnecting, which then basically signs his death warrant as soon as Yeet wins that third challenge. And yeah, Taco is sent packing, which to be fair, Yeet did use a Discord bot to actually eliminate Taco. So that is really just more unlucky bullshit sent his way. He could have been sent to the finale and maybe could have won. I don't think he would have beat Yeet in that finale, but he definitely would have beaten Dallas if he got his way, or especially Cade. We see Taco again next on season 3, a larger season where once again he is throwing Avaughn under the bus and taking them out with Fira, where Fira beats him in PvP, and then the rest of his team make the merge in that crazy double elimination. I believe Taco is the one who wins immunity, which is huge in that fucking episode because that episode was bullshit. That challenge was bullshit. That double elimination was kind of nuts. From there, though, he does lose Fira, and he's kind of forced to work with Crunchy. And Crunchy is clearly capable of working with him, and Wells even joins in voting out Monkey. Problem is, Crunchy does not take Taco, but once again, it is another situation where it's not even a case of Taco's too tough to beat. I don't want to take him to the end. No, it's Crunchy just has them pick a number, and the closest number was Wells, and Wells got to go to the finale. It was that simple. And then that's how Taco's journey ended on season 3. Taco took a bit of a break from playing to co host with me for 4 and 5, and he's back on season 6, where he is running the game once again. He is dominating. He's throwing Inkling and Garchomp out, isolating Connor. Crunchy trying to take out Datcrit. Tako just won't let him, pulls in Connor to take out Crunchy instead in the revotes. And then When the heroes implode, they take advantage of that. They take out the duo in Wells and Monkey, and then Connor tries to flip with CJ, but Tako beats Connor in PvP when he needs it, and cements himself in the final three when he wins the trivia challenge in the final three, taking out CJ, the biggest threat of the season, probably. Maybe Datcrit was. And finale, Tako almost wins. It was a 3-2 go. He was really close, but in the end, he just couldn't pull it out. And his games on 1 and 6 were seriously impressive. Stuff to take note of. Season 3 was pretty great too. That's why he's at the very top of A tier, the second best player of all time. And coming in at number 1, of course, it's the king of Total Drama Bedrock. It's none other than Yeet Nugget, our glorious king, the double winner of seasons 1 and 4, the third place finisher in season 2, and eighth place, unfortunate. I don't want to say quitter because there was apparently a situation I'm finding out about that I don't know the specifics, but that he had something come up that it was more important than a Minecraft game show. And at the end of the day, he had to go at eighth in a spot where I'll get to it, but I think he had another deep run in him on that season. So, of course, we go to season 1. This is his weaker of the two winning games because on this season, he is initially sent to the orange team after Avaughn is voted out in a place where it's just him, Tako, and Dallas. Pretty easily, if they lose a challenge, Tako and Dallas will just pick Yeet off and help isolate CJ, Niner, and Caden. However, that does not happen. They win all the challenges. He is safe. He has a pretty lucky win on his hands this time around. Um, he even fails in saving CJ in that stupid fucking other team votes on the other two from the other team thing that I did with CJ and Caden because there was only two, instead of just doing a PvP fight. And CJ, Yeet's closest ally, got sent packing, which required Yeet to really lock in with Caden in the merge. Thankfully for Yeet, Dallas's Wi-Fi, breaks out on him, or internet or whatever. And he is able to win the final three challenge, in which he brings Caden with him, which, again, in a position where he wasn't really actually certain on bringing Caden, but he also really didn't need to. I think he probably had that finale challenge on lock no matter who he was facing in the top four. So while, yeah, you could criticize his inability to get what he wanted most of the time, and it really only happened when Dallas's internet left, he still was in a very strong position entering the merge. That as long as he made it, I think the win was just unlocked. Next in season 2, he is immediately in a power position with Wells controlling the vote on Plaz, taking him out, and then Wells is in a pretty unfortunate move for Yeet's game, actually. Wells quits the game for Monkey to stay another day, and that makes it 2-2 into the merge, which Yeet wins the final four challenge, saving himself. But unfortunately, Niner wins the final three challenge, and because I was a little snitchy snitch, trade secret I talked about earlier with Niner. I kind of leaked and cut out of the episode that Yeet won season 1 to Niner because I didn't want a double winner in the first two seasons. I'm not proud of it, but that was kind of my thought process was there. And yeah, season 2 was kind of scuffed, wasn't it? Um, but yeah, that kind of really pushed Niner to eliminate Yeet in the final three. I think he was probably leaning to bringing Monkey with him to the end regardless. But still, it happened, and it was driven by things that were out of his control and kind of rigged. So that's also pretty big pro for him. That him getting eliminated came from outside forces, not even from his own game, which was so good that Niner was almost considering taking him to the end. We then see Yeats skip out on season 3. We go to season 4, where this is just the most dominant win we've ever seen in Total Drama Bedrock. I mean, of course, he doesn't have to go to Tribal at all until the Datcrit vote, where Datcrit is voted back onto the tribe. Now, I do not think he gets his way. I assume he votes with Datcrit trying to send home Bubby here. However, just does not work out because in the PvP fight, Bubby beats Datcrit, which could be a bad thing for Yeet. However, it just isn't. Going into the merge, it's 3-3. They need Yeet's vote. So it's a 3-on-3 deadlock, Bubby versus Badger. And then he really plays this merge perfectly in my eyes. I mean, he sticks with Nathan and Bubby for this vote, lets Bubby beat Badger in the PvP fight, and then he flips on Bubby in the final five to Garchomp and Plaz for one vote, taking out Bubby, who is his most serious competition in the challenges. And I actually think he might win every single challenge in the merge this season. I could be wrong. I think he might have. Um, and from there, he does switch back over to Nathan, which is the right move, but Nathan does lose the PvP fight to Garchomp in a really clutch up moment. But it doesn't really matter because he does win that final three challenge in which he can take Garchomp to the end. And while he does almost lose, he still does win and take home the double win in an incredibly dominant and extremely entertaining fashion. Lastly, of course, as I alluded to, we have season six, where, yeah, Yeet was in the initial majority alliance with voting out Logan and Marlon, but something came up and he had to leave and volunteered to quit. And it's a really unfortunate end for the greatest Total Drama Bedrock player of all time. But when you think about it like this, I really think he had another deep run in him, which was so impressive to think about. I mean, him and CJ were ride or dies for sure this season. I asked CJ what would have happened if he did not quit, and he says they were probably going to go for Wells. Now, I do not think Monkey would have voted out Wells. I think it probably would have been a 2-2 vote. I assume it would have been, I guess it really doesn't matter because I don't think Wells would be able to beat either CJ or Yeet in a PvP fight unless he got lucky, which is possible, but just not something I'm going to account for. And honestly, I think having this kind of block really solidifies the heroes more, possibly, while we go into the merge, and actually really sets up the heroes more for a potential win against that Datcrit and Tako duo. With Connor eagerly ready to jump ship, he could finally do that without really all this nonsense. Unless Monkey were to flip too because he senses he's in danger, which isn't necessarily a wrong play that he could make, um, reading the situation. But either way, I think he would have normally made not just the merge, probably at least top five or top four. I think with CJ, there's a really good chance they could have gone deep together. Now, I don't think he would have made the finale again. I think that's just too much to ask for. But still, I think he had another extremely good run in him, and it's unfortunate we didn't get to see it. But regardless, that is, he is just the king of TDB. Okay, it's the next day now. I was looking at this, you know, I just realized, look, having like Badger in the same tier as like winners like Wells and Marlon and Datcrit, it just does not add up to me. So I just decided to move the block of Datcrit to Logan up to A tier. So now the B tier is more focused on in the earlier parts. It's more like the people who kind of got screwed out or had potential, like in Fire's case, or like, Badger and all that. And then the rest of the tiers are people who got really far but just couldn't really get it out on that first win. And then now in A tier is like the people who either did win. I don't think there is a non-winner in A tier, which I think is pretty fair. Yeah, yeah, okay. So yeah, yeah, this is the actual finished tier list now. I've decided, and enjoy the rest of your day.